Hello, everyone. Blessings and welcome to Sunday Night Alive on Sunday nights at 6 p.m. My name is Reverend Denise Schubert, and I am a New Thought minister. And we come together every week on Sundays at 6 p.m. to explore what it means to live a life of spiritual power. We come together to explore what it means to come out of the world of fear, doubt, worry, and lack, and to really give our spiritual gifts and to kind of move through life in a powerful, manifesting kind of way. That's not to say that we don't love the world. We do, and that we aren't. That we don't wrap all of creation in our love, but if we aren't thriving, no one is thriving. So I'm so happy you're here with me tonight. We are on a very special 7-week uh, series called Radical Self-Care and Outrageous Support. And this really has to do with allowing yourself to care for yourself during the holiday season and beyond. This is way more important than Christmas, but it's a critical conversation and one that we're not very good at. So I wanted to spend a few weeks before the actual Christmas holiday to explore with you what it means to radically care for your body, your mind, and your spirit. Last week, we talked about radical selfishness, and I'm going to recap that in a moment. But for now, let me just invite you, if you're here with me, to check in. Hi, Heather. So good to see you from North Carolina. We're here to check. You can check in with me, just say hello so I know you're here, and including you in my consciousness as we explore these topics together. But before we take a deep dive, let me simply, first of all, just tell you how much I appreciate your being here. I love Sunday nights. I've been doing this for a long time, all the way through COVID, all the way through so many changes in my own life. Uh, my Africa and my hip replacement and my stroke and my cat's dying. And I just found out today that my 44-year-old nephew died unexpectedly this week from a bleeding ulcer. And every time I hear news like that, it makes me really commit again to the work that we're doing here, because as a spiritual being having a human experience, if we don't remember that we're a spiritual being having a human experiences, this life is almost more than we can bear. Because how sad is all of it? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like life is so complicated, and the world is so what shall I say? The world is not awakened yet enough to really embrace these ideas of what it does it mean to care for yourself. What does it mean to love life bodaciously? What does it mean to step into an idea that you make a difference, and that how you are, who you are, and how you take care of yourself matters? So I am happy to be here with you tonight. You mean more to me than I can ever really express to you. So let me take a moment to bless our time together. We are spiritual beings. We are having a human experience, that God is our source, that we are not here alone, that we are not set on this planet spiraling through space, like this somebody said once, this dust ball spiraling through space without meaning or purpose, that we are ultimately meaningful and purposeful. We matter to each other, we matter to generations to come, and we matter to life as it is in this very moment. And so join with me. Take a deep breath. Invite yourself into this time where we open our minds, we open our hearts, we open ourselves to have a deeper understanding of who we are. We open ourselves to have a deeper participation in life, and we recognize that we did not make ourselves. We did not make the planet. We did not make the animals. We did not make the trees. We did not make anything. We have occupied our bodies for the pleasure, the joy, and the privilege of co-creation, of really experiencing this amazing planet and all of its beauty and all of its possibility while moving through the transitions of what the world offers. But what I know and share with you tonight in this moment is that who we are is eternal. We are an essence. We are God in the flesh. We are spiritual entities, that nobody is dying. Nobody is, um, that each one of us is an ethereal spirit that will continue after this lifetime. And so we can lean into faith about that, trust about that, and awareness about that, which will make the hardships easier to endure and make the glory moments easier to enjoy. And so, for all of this and so much more that this simple 45 minutes means to us, I do give thanks. I give thanks for you. I give thanks for the awareness of God's presence. And I give thanks for whatever transpires here tonight, knowing that we are blessed by it. And so it is. Amen. Amen. So happy to be here with you. I am streaming to you live from North Fort Myers. No, sorry, forgot I moved. So funny. I am streaming to you live from Naples, Florida, where I now live. I'm now working at the Unity Church, and we are here to talk about radical self-care and outrageous support for the next few weeks. Last week we did talk about redefining selfishness. I hope that all of you, yes, I hope that all of you had an opportunity to question for yourself where you are with selfish. Do you think it's bad? Were you trained to think that being selfish is bad? Do you think that sacrificing yourself for others is good? I want you to think about these things, because ultimately in this life, you starting with yourself will render you in a position to be much more present, much more generous, much more of value to your brothers and sisters, whether they're family or your church community or your coworkers or your friends. If you are not in tip-top shape, you will not serve life to the degree that you can serve life. And selfishness is the place that we started, because I don't know if I shared last week what the Dalai Lama said about Americans, but he said that Americans, that self-loathing is a pandemic in America. Now, this word self-loathing is a little harsh, but it does speak to this idea, especially if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not caring for our bodies, our minds, and our spirits. It speaks to this idea that we think that we don't matter, that we think that we're not worthy of that kind of love and attention, that we think that how we feel about ourselves has no connection to how we treat other people, how we show up in life, how we respond to stress. And it may leave us, I think his comment really is speaking to how a little bit uh, that we, in our lack of self-love, self-respect, and self-regard, that our way of showing up in the world, our way of being in the world, may be not as loving and as kind, as compassionate as we think that maybe it can be. And so this radical self-care series is really, I'm actually manipulating you, because if you have been studying with me for the past 20 years, you know that I will tell you that the bottom line in your spiritual growth and evolution is all grounded in the love of self. Self-love, self-respect, self-regard, and non-judgment. But that's really hard to do. Being a being who does not judge other people is hard to do if you are engaged in activities and ways of being and behaviors that are self-destructive to you. Because if you are destroying the self, you're also destroying the other. So are you with me? So it's very, very important that we get selfish, and not selfish like we don't care about other people. We get selfish because we totally care about other people, because we are in love with people. We are in love with life. We are in love with being the best that we can be. It's interesting in that, this week we're kind of moving out of selfishness, and hopefully you are it, engaged in looking to see where in your life you're not practicing a kind of healthy selfishness when it comes to you. Sometimes, sometimes we treat our cars better than our bodies. You know what I mean? You buy a new car and it's so important, and you change the oil every 6 months, and you keep it cleaned and washed, and all of the things that we do to something that we really care about. And sometimes we don't keep ourselves as washed. We don't change our own oil, that but in truth, this body is your ride in life. This body is the way that you move around this planet. And if it's not healthy, if it's not happy, if it's not thriving, if it's not comfortable, it's impossible to enjoy the ride. Do you know what I mean? So tonight, really, it begins our focus on radical self-care of the body. And um, this body is your ride in this lifetime. In order to get where you're going to go in style, you have to make sure it's full of gas and that the windows are cleaned. Yes. Now, and if you don't really care about yourself, who will care about you? Now, listen, people, the New Thought traditions, whether it's the Fillmores of Unity, or whether it's Ernest Holmes, or whether it's any of the people who in the early days of New Thought, they used these practices and principles to heal the body of very, very serious diseases. Now, this is less critical in today's modern world because we have medicine that they didn't have then. We have solutions for the body, which what weren't in being practiced then. But still, our enlightenment and our transformation is realized and experienced in the body temple, that your body is the home of God. Your body is a sacred place. It's a sacred space. I remember, I'm going to tell you, I grew up in a kind of a heavy drinking, heavy smoking, heavy drugging family. And I remember in my 40s coming to my own spiritual practice. And I was in Los Angeles. I was living in Los Angeles. I was working for a law firm. I was at Agape doing my spiritual studies, just like you're doing yours now. And I remember driving to the airport to pick somebody up. And I was listening to a Christian radio station because for me, religion and spirituality was new to me at 45. I wasn't really raised in religion. So I was kind of soaking up everything. I was like, God, what? This is like a whole new world to me, this idea of God living itself and breathing itself in life, and that we're not here alone. We're not like these little blotches of protoplasm. So I remember listening to this young Hispanic preacher talking about the body as the holy temple of God. And I was smoking, listening to him. And I had a revelation in this car on the way to the Los Angeles International Airport, we lovingly call LAX, having this realization that if I was going to go too much further down this path of awakening to my spiritual magnificence, of believing that life was worthy of my attention and living, that I might have to take a look at all of my life denying behaviors. And I became very clear in that moment that smoking for me was an act of self-loathing. Now, don't go too deep with me here, but for me personally, it was a revelation. It was like, OMG. if I'm going to walk this walk and talk this talk, I cannot do this. That's how it showed up. And it was powerful and palpable and real for me in the very caverns of my being, that I knew that I was going to have to change my life, and that to change my life and to step into this awareness that we are surrounded by a loving presence, I was worthy of love. I was worthy of respect. I was worthy of all of that, that I was going to have to say so for myself. It was a decision I was going to have to make for myself. I quit smoking exactly 62 days later. Uh, and I've never, ever smoked again or looked back. Now, if you're a smoker, please don't be offended by what I just said, because it's you can smoke. If it's not self-loathing for you, it's not. But I do want to say that I have come to realize on this path that the body, in your transformation or awakening or enlightenment, demands your body's participation. That you will not be able, that there's some critical component in our shifting that lives in the body, that unless we shift that, we will stay a little bit stuck. Now, what do I mean by that? For some of us, it's, so let me back up for a second. Right where you are, no matter how old you are, you've had the body since the day you were born. And by the way, I have a little bit of good news. Tanya, who owns Bush Baby Haven in South Africa, where I have spent so many months enjoying the nature in Africa. And I also went there for 6 months to heal after my stroke and hip replacement. So this woman and I are friends, sisters maybe. Anyway, she just had a baby. Like on November 7th, she gave birth to Willow. And I'm just in awe of that and so excited about that. But this, when you think about birth, when you think about a child coming in, all of a sudden they're being oriented into what it means to live on earth, what it means for them as a spiritual being to be raised up and lived on earth. And I know is that by the time we reach 30, 40, or 50, all the bad habits, all the belief systems we have, all of the ways that we have of being are pretty settled, like they're in our bones. So when we start talking about, when we come into our spiritual life, whatever that life is, and whenever we come to it, and most of us will come to it eventually, because life, as we were talked about earlier, life is hard. People die, and there's COVID, and there's wars, and there's shootings, and there's the economy, and there's a real estate market, and all of these things conspire to don't know what the right word is, but almost rob us of our joie de vivre, our love of life, our happiness. Like, we can be worn down in life. In fact, I think we come to a spiritual awakening because we need to recover from life. Like, we need to recover from, quote, what we would call real life. So, did somebody just give me balloons? That was cute. So, so it's important because our body takes on the life that we've lived. So listen, you cannot smoke for 40 years and not have lung problems. You cannot not move for 20 years and expect to climb stairs. Like in order to be a proper vehicle for the glory of this experience, we must care for our body temple. That's really tonight's lessons. Tonight's lesson is whatever, just accept the fact that to grow spiritually, you're going to have to, there's a physical component that requires your attention. That could be losing weight. It could be quitting smoking or drinking or drugging. It could be getting closer to nature. It could be exercising for the first time in 25 years. it could be so many things, because the body, like a car, except a little more intricate than a car really, requires our radical decision to care for it, our radical decision to love it, our radical decision to decide that life matters and that we matter in life. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Because I think the Dalai Lama was not so wrong when he pointed out that we're not a culture of people who are really in touch with our bodies. We're way more in touch with our technology. Way more in touch with whatever the news is saying than we are with our self. I shared with you a couple weeks ago that I did this course of study with this Indian guru. I can't remember his name at this moment. I'm sorry, sir. Uh, but his course is called Inner Engineering. It has to do with really coming into the realization that in the raising of consciousness on our planet, that the time is coming where we've gone about as far as we can go with the outer engineering, which we're very, very good at, because we just are. We've crafted smartphones and airplanes and artificial intelligence and computers, and it's just really kind of a little overwhelming how connected we are in the world and how really good we have gotten at engineering the stuff of the planet. But we're entering into a time where that journey has to be made inside, that we're going to have to go inside and begin the engineering of our minds, engineering of our bodies, and the engineering of our spirits. It not necessarily just so that we can live, but so that we can live well, so that we can be comfortable in our own skins, so that we can age properly. I am 72 years young, and that doesn't feel particularly youthful to me, because that's the last quarter, right? I'm in the last quarter of life, 75 to 100, or the final third, and that the world would have us think that this is a time of um, quieting down or shutting down or slowing down or making less of a difference in life. And we have to argue with that, right? You and your mind, we have to argue with our beliefs about that. We have to argue with the race consciousness about that. But I think that all starts in caring for your body, because if you don't really care about yourself, who will care about you? So it all begins, it all begins with a decision. Everything begins with a decision, not a decision somebody else makes, but a decision you make. It begins with a decision to love who you are and treat yourself the way that you would treat someone you really love, or certainly as well as you would treat your new Toyota or your new Lexus or your new Hummer. I like to think of myself as a Porsche, right? So, so, so here's the charge for you for this week. The charge for this week is about the body. Now, there are some very, very simple things. Now, do you guys know? So, during my early spiritual days of training, I actually uh, kind of took a deep dive into the body, because I've always been a person with like crazy body image, like never really been happy. I'm always too chubby, or my skin's not quite right, or my teeth aren't quite right. So I was really an adult woman who had a lot of body issues. So I realized that as part of my spiritual growth, I was going to need to tackle those. Well, maybe I didn't decide that, but life kind of gave them to me to tackle. But what I did do in my early 50s was I went to yoga, did my yoga certification, became a yoga teacher. And I also went to massage school and became a massage therapist. Now, I didn't work very long as a yoga teacher or a massage therapist, but what I did do is transform the way I viewed my body. Now, there's a word called fascia. which is kind of that, how can I describe it? It's like it's like something that encases your body, kind of like a onion skin on an onion, or the rind of the orange peel. It's like your body's encased by fascia. And it's one way of just talking about it is like if you injure your shoulder when you're a child and you don't treat it properly, you could end up with frozen shoulder, right? So the fascia freezes on the parts of your body so that you can't have full motion. And I discovered in my training as a yoga teacher and a massage therapist that we can, through attention and time, change how the body is held. There was a period of time where I bought an inversion table. This is really too much information, but I'm wanting you to get what I'm talking about. I brought an inversion table to help I had neck issues and hip issues. And an inversion table allows you to go upside down and stretch and kind of create space in your joints and in the bones. And I had a surgery when I was 20, abdominal surgery. And when I started inverting, I had this really serious pain in my right hand side. And I came to realize that it was scar tissue from the surgery that had never been released, that it had kind of frozen in time. And through this, I don't know who's doing this, but I've never seen this before, where people are thumbs upping me or ballooning me on Facebook Live. It's kind of freaking me out a little bit. Who's doing that? Tell me who's doing that. But at any rate, I realized that in the process of inverting, I was 25 years later stretching these spaces that had been frozen. That's kind of what we're doing in our spiritual growth. We are unfreezing places that have been frozen. So I encourage you this week to begin to practice radical self-care for your body. And I'm going to just give you some really fast things you can do. But the doingness is not as important as the beingness, as a decision you make to love yourself. That if you really loved yourself, if you really thought you could have a happy, long life, if you really thought your experience could change, what would you do differently? The decision is to be different. So, but in the doingness of it, obviously, your body is a machine beautifully created by the creator of everything. It's an amazing machine. It's a thinking machine. It's a digesting machine. It's a circulating machine. It is, and it is completely responsive to your thinking and your attitude and your love. Completely responsive. You could heal. I remember I did work with Darren Wiseman in Chicago. Does this beautiful work. He's a chiropractor who does this beautiful work called the Lifeline technique. And I was in a lot of pain during those years with neck issues. And I remember him saying, there is nothing in the body that cannot be healed by your mind. Nothing. And it's like, oh, come on, nothing. But I also did this Lifeline technique training with him. And your body will respond to your love, I promise you. So here, drink water. If somebody were to ask me on my deathbed what I attributed the quality of my energy in my life and my love of life to, I would say water. Drink more water than you think you need to drink. I think it's good for depression. It's good for elimination. It's good for hydration. I mean, it's good for everything. Drink water. Love the food you eat. Now, I could say eat broccoli, which I would say eat broccoli and spinach, eat some vegetables, eat some, I have people in my life who never eat vegetables, never. And they're still alive and they still look good. So I think you can live without eating vegetables and fruit. I don't know the quality of life really. But more importantly is to love the food you're eating. So do not, if you have an issue with food, sugar, well, I would say quit eating so much sugar as well. Sugar is another thing. That sugar is not really great for you. It's probably worse for you than anything. But if you're going to eat it, love it. Dr. Michael Beckwith said one time in a sermon, and I just loved it. He said, "Oh, sure, I have an oatmeal cookie every now and again, but with my mind, I turn it into broccoli when it hits my digestive system." Now, does that really work? I think maybe it does. So drink more water, eat. Your body's a closed system. It is whatever you put into it. That's all it gets. Whatever thinking you put into it, whatever emotions you put into it, whatever nutrition you put into it, whatever liquid you put into it. So treat it with love and respect, whatever that means. And you can do it. It's just a decision. And that doesn't mean never have a cookie. My goodness, I had a huge piece of Jello cake today. It was absolutely delicious, and I loved it. Your body, in Silver Sneakers, which is a exercise program for older people, they have the saying, if you don't move, you won't move. If you don't move, you won't move. These are obvious things, right? They're obvious. You need to eat good food. You need to not engage in self-destructive behavior, which is probably the bigger message, right? That do not self do. So the love of self repudiates the idea of doing anything that would harm yourself, whatever that is, whether it's not getting enough sleep, not drinking enough water, not taking enough time for stillness and meditation and contemplation, whether it's not exercising, sitting in front of a computer, eating bonbons, smoking cigarettes, whatever is not good for the body. And it's the same way as not getting oil changes is not good for your car. So if you want, we have a higher why of why we're doing this, which we covered last week. So there are 4 aspects of why you would take better care of your body. One is for the sake of your personal and professional success. That to be a success in life, to be happy, you have to take care of yourself. Now, the only people who don't take care of themselves are the people who don't think that happiness is possible or that life is really worth living or that you don't make a difference. And none of those things are true. You do make a difference. Life is amazing. And we're working, right? A life of spiritual power is a life where you realize your life is amazing. Second is so that you can live as a generous and generative force for good. So I can't remember who I was listening to today, but they were talking about how the presence of God is experienced by us through our relationships with other people. That the God out there is not relatable, really. So you have to find the divine within yourself, and then you get to look in my eyes and see that you get to recognize the divine in me. And in that, we find our love of life, in that, we find our connections. I remember at one time listening to love songs and realizing that every love song ever written, every love song ever sung, every love song is a song about God. It's about, if I could only love that much, if I could only be loved that much. And then we awaken to our spiritual truth and we discover that we are the love, that the love is in here. And we begin to express that love through caring for ourselves, honoring ourselves, respecting our spiritual path, knowing that we have gifts to give, talents to share, and that all of that will lead to a life of fulfillment. So we practice radical self-care so that we are good stewards of our gifts and talents, that we take care of the car, right? We take care of it so that we can be be of value in the life that we're living, and that we practice selfishness with our bodies. And by the way, radical selfishness with your bodies means, you tell somebody, no, I can't stay out too late tonight because I need my sleep. I'm working tomorrow, or we don't indulge in all of that food. We talked, you don't have to clean your plate. right? You can just eat the food you want to eat. You don't have to please anybody. Who cares if your mother makes you, you know, Kentucky fried chicken and mashed potatoes and butter soaked corn and bread and chocolate cake? You don't have to eat it all. You really don't. I give you permission. Just have 2 bites. Say, Mom, that was so good, and be done. Yeah. So, and you get to be the guide. You are the judge of what's good, what's bad, what's wrong, what's right, what's life affirming versus life denying for you in your life. And radical selfishness will allow you to make those choices without being too concerned about what other people think about you. We'll talk more about that next week. So that's our lesson for tonight. We're in week number 2 of 7 weeks. Last week we talked about radical selfishness. If you didn't listen to it, you can go back. It will be on Facebook for eternity. Good news or bad news. Next week we're going to go into radical self-care of your mind, which is also a very meaty and juicy topic. But this week, focus on your body and really don't, it's not really too useful if you just hear me go blah, blah, blah. You have to take actions. Your transformation lives in the actions that you take and the discomfort you go through. I promise you that awakening, transformation, enlightenment is not comfortable. you know, and whether that means you go through losing 20 pounds, or you go through quitting smoking, or you go through sleeping more, getting off pain meds, whatever that God, it is possible to transform through the shifting of some idea you have about your physical body. All right. So that is our message for tonight. Again, if you want, if you need some spiritual support and you want to talk this out or through, if you, because listen, I could have never, I could have never transformed by myself. Never. I had ministers, I had spiritual coaches, I read books, I prayed, sometimes on my knees. So sometimes you need somebody who can see you and view you for the truth of who you are, and not who you think you are, or who you believe you are, or who your mother thinks you are. So please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Do not hesitate, or to reach out to someone. And you can do that through, revdschubert@gmail.com. You can email me. We can talk. We can do a counseling session. We can do whatever you want. If you want to support this ministry with your love offerings or tithes, also, I welcome them, and use them wisely. I'm actually going to South Africa in March to meet this new baby. Her name is Willow. So anyway, so prayer or money, please feel free. All right, so I'm going to speak a word of blessing upon you, knowing I can't talk to you all personally. So I don't know where your challenges are. I don't know where your doorway into your own spiritual awakening is, but I want you to know that I hold you all in prayer all of the time. That no, I know absolutely that whatever you're seeking is seeking you, and that a better life, a happier life, a more grounded spiritual life is possible, no matter where you are today in your journey. And so just join with me once again. Turn within. Take a breath, a deep breath. Feel your inner world, your inner life, that space right around your heart that is a dwelling place of the divine. As I speak a word of blessing upon us and a word of gratitude for our time together, I do know that God is real. And God is not out there, but God's in here. God's in me, God's in you. That we have a sacred and spiritual aspect to our being that is so beautiful, so pervasively good, so in the realm of unlimited possibility and potential. And we activate it through our prayers. We activate it through our attention. We activate it through meditation and contemplation. We activate it through change. And so what I know in this moment as I speak my word for and about you, for and about myself, and every person within the sound of my voice, that there is always more. There's more growth, more awareness, more awakening, that it is possible to do the impossible. It is probable that the impossible is achievable, that we can become master manifestors in our own lives by radical a radical change in the way that we act, the way that we think, the way that we are, the way that we be, and that we do not do it alone, that God is over there. God is our best cheerleader, holding for us always, that we have the capacity to change, no matter how old we are, no matter how lost we are, no matter how difficult life is, that there is always more possibility. I am a purveyor of possibility, and I know this for you. And so, for the blessings of tonight, the ones we've given and received, for whoever sent me balloons, I am grateful. So we let this time be complete until we meet again next Sunday for the radical self-care of your mind. So peace and blessings to you. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I look forward to seeing you down the road.